In 2022, I sold my language learning company. Someone in my network approached me to buy it, and we did the whole deal via WhatsApp. I took 6 months off to disconnect and figure out what I wanted to do next. And it really got me thinking that I only know a handful of people that have gone through what I have. Because apparently 80% of companies don't sell. They just fall by the wayside and quietly close or don't get handed down to family. So in this video, I'll share 3 big lessons I learned from selling my company. And it doesn't matter if that's not on your roadmap, if at all. These learnings will still apply to you because your business is one of your biggest assets. And hopefully my advice will help yours to increase in value. If you're interested, I talk about this selling process from start to finish on the Founder Tech Decoded podcast. I'll add the link in the comments. Lesson number 1, remove yourself from the business. Now, if you're in the early stages of launching your company, or even if you've been trading for a couple of years, the ultimate holy grail is to be able to remove yourself from your own company so you're not involved on a day-to-day basis. In E-Myth Revisited, the author Michael Gerber outlines how entrepreneurs often start out as technicians. A technician focuses on input, following the processes or systems to support the daily operations. It's what could be described as functional tasks that can be done by following a manual or a set of procedures. In other words, working on your business rather than in it. The reason this is so important from a selling point of view is because the last thing a buyer wants is for you to be central to the business and its operations, only for everything to, collapse once the sale has been done and you've exited the company. The greater your level of involvement with sales or customer support or daily operations, the less valuable your business, because you're an owner-operator that every department relies on. Tim Ferriss also talks about it in the 4-Hour Workweek. If you took a mini retirement from your business and you didn't answer any emails or take any calls for 1 whole week, how would this affect sales or customer support or your operations? What would happen if you were to extend that for a month? Would the business still survive? This question is even more critical if you're a solopreneur or a one-person business. I had my first mini retirement in 2014 when I traveled to Central America for a sabbatical. I handed literally everything over to my office manager and had no involvement for 6 weeks, except for one interview which I took in the jungle from my lodge, which was super random. But it was such a great experiment for my business to run without my daily input. It also highlighted the areas where I needed to improve things like staff training or what to do if there's a dip in sales and I'm not around. I repeated those mini retirements, so going on road trips and activity holidays and generally being unavailable to see how things would work without me. And by me implementing automated systems and support guides, onboarding, internal training, everyone from students to tutors to clients knew what the processes were, so that towards the end there was generally minimal input that was required from me. And therefore I was able to focus more on big picture thinking like strategy, growth, adding value. If you're still heavily involved in your business, the potential acquirer would most likely say that they'd need to take into consideration your monthly salary, which would affect the net profit and therefore the final valuation. By implementing the lessons from E-Myth and 4-Hour Workweek, I was able to create a turnkey operation, which meant that the new acquirer could take over my business the next day and follow all the processes and systems that I'd set up, which could be operated by their team. This meant that there were less teething problems in the transition, and they were able to make a profit from day 1. Lesson number 2, know your metrics. I created a sales memorandum pitch deck ready for my broker and for the potential acquirer. Once they signed the NDA, I shared all of the company financials I'd been measuring more or less since I incorporated the business. This included metrics such as, here's the list: revenues, gross and net profit per hour, payment processing fees, salaries, cost of goods, average spend per transaction, average invoice value, the proportion of B2C versus B2B users, lead to sale conversion rates, newsletter open rates, and so much more. You have to have confidence in your numbers and be ready to mentally bring up that data whenever you're asked for it by your accountant or your investor if you're going down that route, or in my case, the buyer. And if anyone watches Dragon's Den, you will know that even after a ton of preparation, entrepreneurs will still walk in and not know their figures, and they've ruined their chances of getting investment because the dragons didn't feel confident that their investment would be managed well by someone who doesn't know their numbers. In my case, I collated all of this data in real time on my accountancy platform Xero and also in my master financials spreadsheet. I updated this at the end of every month so that I could forecast how much cash runway I had. Cash runway is a term usually used in startups to refer to how many months a business can keep operating before it runs out of money. So let's say your monthly outgoings are £7,000 a month and you've got £70,000 in the bank. That means you've got 10 months cash runway left. Knowing this figure means you can make decisions on things like hiring or adding new product lines or upgrading your technology because you know how much of a cushion you've got. Now, even though maths isn't my strongest skill, I pushed through this steep learning curve of my business financials so that I could eventually make smarter decisions based on how healthy my business was. And your business financials tell a story. And for me personally, I needed to show that there was an upward trend in turnover and profits year on year, which my accounts did show. For the buyer, they felt reassured by my transparency, which gave them more confidence to be able to buy my company. Lesson 3, productize your business. When I say productize, I mean digitize and automate as much as you can so that there's less manual processes so that you have a higher profit per hour. For example, my language learning company was a services business, selling language lessons per hour. We were exchanging time for money. Now, it's generally considered harder to value a service-based business. Think on the lines of agency or consultancy, because the service you're providing depends on an individual who has a specific set of skills and talent. If that person were to leave, that can affect the revenue and stability of the company, especially if you're a small team. Whereas if you're selling something like a product, a physical product or technology like SaaS, which is software as a subscription, the valuation calculation is a lot more straightforward. The sales and profits are more tangible as you're relying less on people and more on digital assets and automation. I'll cover that in a later video, but what's really important for me to say here is that if you do own a services business like I did, the more you can digitize and automate, the higher your business is valued. So let's take an example. One of the revenue streams I implemented was a monthly subscription to English lessons. This was a recurring monthly income that the business was generating, where students would sign up online for classes and learn as a group. This whole process from sign up to payment to registration to classroom access was completely automated. Whereas if they were registering for one-to-one classes, a tutor would arrange to have an assessment with them, and that process would be more customized as we'd allocate more time to that individual, which equals less profit per hour. By productizing that service and offering monthly subscriptions, there was essentially less friction in the process and delivery of online lessons, which was an appealing revenue stream for the buyer. This also links up to automation. When a student signed up for learning packages, their registration details would feed into our CRM and then into our newsletter campaigns. So they'd receive a series of onboarding emails that would trigger the next step in their learning journey with us. This was accompanied by how-to videos and step-by-step instructions in our support center, so that ultimately they had a pretty seamless experience with us and there was less room for error and uncertainty. So by automating processes that might previously have been manual, you're saving X number of hours in the week, which can quickly accumulate, and it can save you money, therefore increasing the value of your company. So these were the 3 main lessons that I learned from selling my company. If you're interested in more videos like this, hit subscribe and comment below on what else you'd like to see.